Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Unfortunately, today we could not connect at 5:45. From 5:45 onwards, I was trying very hard, but there was no connection. I think something was wrong at the other end. So I decided to change and send the new link. Some of you have joined. It's good that at least we can have some class today. So we instead of having Bhagavad Gita, we are having our alternate Saturday class, which is Vedanta and the Science of Human Possibilities. So in our previous class, we discussed that wonderful example given in the Kathopanishad of a chariot. Our body can be compared to a chariot, and the horses are our sense organs. The five senses, sometimes they show five, sometimes 10, because there is Gyanendriya, five Gyanendriyas, five Karmendriyas. But the mind is the connection between the charioteer, the chariot, and the horses is the reins, which are very important, though it is very subtle, because though the horses give all the power to the chariot, to control that horse, control both the horses as well as the chariot. When you control the horses, when you decide how they should run, then automatically the chariot also follows. Chariot is just very gross. So our body is not as important as the mind. That is what it shows. Mind being subtle, it can control the sense organs, and indirectly it controls the chariot as well. When you control the horses, you control the chariot. That is the idea. So one has to take very good care of the body, because the chariot has to be in good condition. That's the only reason why pranayama, asanas and other things, yama and niyama, these are not just for practicing moral virtues. The more unselfishly we act, it increases, the health of the body also changes. Not that there will be other infectious diseases and other things which come due to karma. But what I'm saying is, if we don't torture the body, that is what this verse means, that it has to be maintained properly. Unknowingly some disease comes, then we are, or maybe some chronic or hereditary disease is there, we cannot do anything. But willingly, we should not torture the body, or look after the chariot as much as possible. That is the idea. For reaching the ultimate goal, our chariot is important. It cannot be disregarded, nor it should be over tortured, in the sense it should be given more than what it can tolerate. So one has to lead. Buddha showed in his life that Madhya Pantha, neither fast too much, because he tried fasting. He became so weak, then he found that it is affecting his mind. He was meditating. Then from somewhere, Sujata comes and gives some pious. He was about to die. He was just reduced to skin and bones under that Bodhi tree. Then Buddha suddenly realized, this way I'm not going to reach the path. So he is fortunately saved by a bowl of pious or sweetened rice, which one young lady, Sujata, brings, and that saves his life. Slowly he regains his strength, and then he decides, now I'll follow the middle path. By middle path, as the Gita also mentions, not eating too much, nor starving too much. And in moderation, doing everything in moderation. Not sleeping too much, not sleeping too little. Either way. And then he gave that beautiful example. He says, in the music of life, suppose there is a musical instrument, veena. He gave the example of the veena, which was very common. He said, in the veena, If the chords are very tight, then the music is not proper. If you just tighten it more, it has to be optimally tightened. There is a adjustment which every musician does. He tunes the instruments. He has to tighten it enough, but not too much. If it is too loose, then also it won't give the proper sound. So whether it should be tightened as much as the musicians know which is the proper pressure, proper tension in the strings. Only when there is proper tension, when it is neither too tight nor too loose, then you get the proper music. So that is the idea. The body should neither be tortured nor disregarded, or we should not do that also. We just allow it to do whatever they like. The indriyas. So we should not give a free rein to our senses. So for that, the mind is very important. It is the connecting link. So, but who will control that mind? Now that mind is just like the reins of a horse. The reins may be very strong, but the person who holds it, he is the buddhi. He is the subtle part of the mind, which controls the gross part of the mind, manas. So buddhi is the one. Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi. We saw that verse in our previous class. Consider that buddhi to be the sarathi. So Sri Krishna, when he drove Arjuna's ratha, he was the sarathi. He was, as it were, he took control of Arjuna's mind through the buddhi. By refining his buddhi, by giving him the correct knowledge, buddhi is reliable because it is an intuitive knowledge that we get. We have to struggle hard. Buddhi is not such a, we don't talk of intelligence. It is known as wisdom. Intelligence is one thing. That is, we have trained the mind with some skill sets. Anybody can do that. There are many skill sets that we need to acquire, mathematical skills. That can make you an intelligent person. But buddhi is not just mental intelligence. It means spiritual intelligence. Buddhi is often the most important requirement. Dhi or buddhi. That is the essence of all the mantras, essence of Gayatri mantra. The Gayatri mantra, which is the essence of the Vedas, it is just a prayer to the Lord. Because once he gives you buddhi or he gives you dhi, dhiyo yona prachodayatal, give me the right understanding. And when that right understanding or right direction is given by the one who controls the chariot and the horses, with the help of the reins, which are very strong, the mind has to be strong. But at the same time, it has to be properly directed. Just strength is not enough. So the self, then, the person can relax. The person, if you have a very safe driver, strong horses, strong chariot, then the person who is sitting, who is the master of the chariot, not the one who drives, the other one who is traveling, he feels relaxed. If everything is going on so smoothly, if the buddhi is controlling the vehicle, then he just can detach himself. He becomes the master of the chariot. But suppose for some reason, either the reins are not strong, or the horses are wild, or the driver is not able to control the horses, then the person who is traveling, he stands the risk of an accident. So he's always worried, he's anxious. So unless everything other than the self, which is distinct from and which is the master of the chariot, he is not the one who should be influenced by the chariot. He should be in total control. Even the driver should be under his control. The buddhi also should be under his control. He should give proper directions, should have a perfect driver as an instrument. So buddhi, though it is a higher form of mind, a subtle form of mind, it is still dependent on the self, the light of the self, which falls on the mind and which shines, which gives us the wisdom, not just intelligence, but wisdom. That is the secret of self-mastery. We discussed that in our previous class. Now, before we proceed further, before we even try to explore, having taken this example into consideration, now we know what exactly is expected of us. But we have to remember that human personality is always a graded organization. Though we may not like it, but when we take up a body, even incarnations, he is subject to these grades. At 5 different levels, he will be acting. So there is one physical level which cannot be disregarded. There is an aesthetic level or intellectual level, we can say second. Slightly higher is the aesthetic level, where not just intelligence, but regard for true beauty, inner beauty, not the external beauty. So it is not, it requires a wonderfully sensitive and a cultured mind to recognize art. That is why you'll say many people, though they are very intelligent, if you tell them, oh, let us go for a walk or let us see this beautiful nature, he says, what is there? What do I gain by that? Instead of that, if I focus on my career, I'll get some more money. So such people, if they are at a lower level, they won't be aesthetic. That doesn't mean those who are aesthetic. Some people may be aesthetic just for a living. Say, for example, artists. They do art not out of joy, but because they want to earn money. That is not the aesthetic. Aesthetic means liking for higher values of life, higher moral values. But above aesthetic is moral. So it is good to enjoy beauty and enjoy the subtle joy which we get by the higher pursuits like music, and all those things are very good. It takes us to a slightly higher level than the intellectual, this aesthetic. But above that is moral beauty. When moral beauty comes, when we become forgiving, when we are kind to others, when we are accommodative, when we are patient, when we are content, all the good qualities which Holy Mother has said are important, or even Sri Ramakrishna used to say, every scripture says that. So moral beauty or moral personality, that is another level. So that in that grade, you will find as the human being becomes better and better, as his, you may say it is like promotion. You are promoted from a simple worker to a manager, and manager to a general manager. So also in spiritual life, we begin with the physical. We begin with physical goals. We start with yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. So as Swamiji says, he says, don't disregard it, because 1/3 of our problems are physical. Because the 3 gunas which are in gross form, in subtle form, gunas can influence the gunas. Combination of gunas affect the mind, combination of guna affect the body, and combination of guna affects the samskaras also. So they act at 3 different levels. So Prakriti also acts at 3 different levels. So when you come to the lowest level, the tamo guna will make you lazy, make you angry, make you fight, always fighting with others. That is at the physical level, because physically we are slaves to our body. But when you go a little higher, when you come at the subtle level, then the mind also is affected by gunas. And according to Swamiji, 1/3 of our problems are because of the body. So it is not that we can neglect it. The chariot is very important in our life. So 1/3, Swamiji in fact told the young people of Madras when he gave the famous talk. Even in Calcutta, his famous talk he gave. He said, I know where the shoe pinches. What he meant was, you people are weak. You may be very good, morally good, aesthetically good, but still you need a strong physical body. Because 1/3 of your problems, Swamiji said, especially the youths of Calcutta, he was saying, I know where the shoe pinches because I love you. I'm telling you that 1/3 of your problems are neither physical, or neither subtle, mental, or spiritual. They are purely physical problems. So take care of your body, take care of its health. 1/3 of the, means 33% almost of our problems come from the gross level. So man is capable of living, definitely, though he lives in moral and intellectual and aesthetic planes, or even spiritual planes, which is the highest, still human personality is always graded. It has different levels, and at different levels there are different pulls. The effect of gunas affect the body, it affects the mind, manas, it affects the buddhi, sattvic buddhi, tamasic buddhi. Buddhi also can be tamasic. You may wonder why, because sometimes we think our intuition is very sharp and we understand, but it may be, if it is influenced by tamas, if it is influenced by sattva, we will take the right decision. If it is influenced by tamas or rajas, then it will make us act, our buddhi will guide us in a wrong way. So that is why Swamiji, the Bhagavad Gita says, our buddhi is many faceted. There is the physical buddhi that guides you, makes you a very wise person, no doubt, but physically wise. You say worldly wise. You know how to run a business, or that is also a kind of buddhi. In general terminology, we say, oh, he is a buddhi, very intelligent person. But there are also levels there. So spiritual, of all these levels, spiritual buddhi is the highest, and physical is the lowest, and the mental intellectual buddhi comes in between. Next below the spiritual is the moral level. So if one is moral, he has attained something in life, but that is not everything. That's why you see Girish Ghosh, he was not a moral person, at least when he started his career. But he compensated by surrendering everything to Thakur. Then Thakur, because he had that faith, that faith was sattvic. It was, according to Thakur himself, it was 125%. He was a man of faith. So in spite of his gross weaknesses and other things, he could conquer it, because spiritual faith and spiritual, perhaps he was very sattvic from the spiritual point of view. Physically may be very low. So since it is a graded organization, we can't always say that those who are physically impure or mentally impure, morality is important, but above morality comes spirituality. That doesn't mean that immoral people will become spiritual, but morality alone, for example, that Vidyasagar's example is there. He was a very moral person, always helping others, very good, but still he had his enemies. He did good to so many people, but they all betrayed him. And that is why he lost faith in goodness. Because for him, morality was the goal, not spirituality. Because spirituality was not the goal, he thought by being moral, he will reach his goal. He was really moral. He lost faith in humanity, because he said, if somebody criticized him, he will, in a joking way, he'll say, "Arey, why are you scolding me? What good I have done to you? Something, if I do some good to you, then you criticize." So he thought human nature is like that. You do good to somebody and you get criticized. So that your faith in your moral values, you are doing everything with a moral ideal. But if it is not backed, or it is not supported by the higher ideal, which is spiritual. So you have to understand the level. It is not enough to be good, but one has to be spiritual also. It may look a little funny or look a little difficult to understand, but the excellent example Sri Ramakrishna gave was of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. He is a very, very noble person, always trying to help other people. But at the same time, the spiritual goal was not very clear. He thought the end of life is moral values. So naturally, when you bank your faith on so much on moral values, and you find immoral people getting away with their evil deeds, then you lose faith. That is why he perhaps, when he came to Sri Ramakrishna, he says, Sri Ramakrishna praised him because of his noble qualities. Because Sri Ramakrishna would take up any person from the level he is in and take him from that level and bring him up. So he saw that at least he is moral. He is at least reached that level just below spirituality. He is not just an intellectual. He was a very highly intellectual person, very recognized as a professor, who started many institutions. But he was more famous because of his philanthropy, because of his moral nature. So Sri Ramakrishna loved him deeply. But at the same time, if one has spiritual inclinations, as Bhagavad Gita says, even if a wicked man or a evil man decides to follow spirituality, he has taken the right decision. Because with the help of the more subtle, the highest in this graded personality, the highest and the most powerful is the spiritual. So even if you have faults in the lower four levels, physical, aesthetic, intellectual, moral, still, if we have that inborn faith, which is of course rare, let me say, that is why Patanjali says, start with Yama Niyama. Don't bother, you will not become spiritual overnight. We start with Yama and Niyama. The spiritual is the highest, but that doesn't mean that we have to neglect the physical, nor should we neglect the intellectual or aesthetic, moral. They all come on the way, but they are not the goal. That is the only thing we have to remember. So, very clearly, according to Gita and according to the Upanishads especially, there is no access to spiritual life unless we pass through the moral gate. So it is, though it is a graded organization, in very, very rare cases, like Girish Chandra Ghosh, you will not, he is an exception, or people like him are exceptions. There were many, but it is Sri Ramakrishna's greatness that he could, it is like in earlier days, if a boy was intelligent, he would get double promotion. He will go from class 1 to class 3. The teacher, if she or he thought that this boy or girl is capable enough, he doesn't have to study one more year, he will be directly admitted to third year. Now that is slowly going away, but we used to hear of this double promotion. So Girish Ghosh is like that. Thakur, first he said, he knew all his weaknesses, including drinking and all those things. Then he said, okay, forget moral and intellectual. Intellectually, of course, he was very aesthetically also. He wrote dramas, he wrote songs. That way he was very talented. Not that he was not an intellectual. Only lapse was moral. So naturally it affected his physical. He was drinking all the time. But there was some spiritual core within him which was burning with faith. So that spiritual power, it's an exception, no doubt, such people, but that spiritual power sustained him, and that made him surrender fully to Sri Ramakrishna. And just as Sri Krishna, after telling all the yogas, in the 18th chapter, why does he say, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishyami ma sucha. You don't worry, because Arjuna was totally confused. So many ideas he got in the 17 chapters, saying this is good, this is, even Sri Krishna discusses about yajna, about what duties are, what the need for fighting on the side of the good, to protect dharma. Many things he told in the course of his 17 chapters. And finally he says, Sarva dharman, and that includes morality also. Sarva dharman parityaja means don't hang on to any of these steps. They are graded. First, physically you have become so strong, you will fight this battle. He was a very talented artist also, apart from he could dance very well. Arjuna was famous for that. So he was a aesthetic person, very, very good at performing arts. And also he was very good intellectual, obviously. His intelligence, concentration, and of course he was moral to a very large extent. Not like Dharmaraja, who was Dharma incarnate, but he was definitely moral. He did not grab other people's wealth or property and other things. It, as far as possible, he tried. But when he was irritated or when he was challenged, he would fight. So that physical strength was also there. But Sri Krishna wanted to give him spiritual strength. So he gives him the path of dharma. First he says, what is dharma? You start karma yoga, then other yogas you do. Then you reach a certain level. But then what you have to do? In the 18th chapter, he says, Sarva dharman parityajya. If you give up all the dharma, then what is the use of practicing it if you have to give up? It has a meaning. You just can't give the physical. First develop, raise yourself. Since human personality is a graded organization, we go on developing the physical, aesthetic, intellectual, moral. And when you have gained all these things, when you want, if you really want to attain the spiritual value, then the ego has to go. If you think you are a very moral person, very intellectual person, very aesthetic person, physically very strong person, that will be the downfall. Because spiritual progress and ego, they don't go together. So the ego has to be controlled. How do we do it? The only way you can control it by surrendering the fruits of all dharma. Not that you become surrendering dharma doesn't mean you follow adharma. It just means the gains you got by following dharma, you sacrifice. Think it is a dedication to me. Don't be very proud that you are doing all these great things, protecting dharma and all. Just be humble. And if you do that, then if you have done some faults, moral lapses, because when you follow the path of dharma, as you see in the Gita, he had to kill so many people. So Arjuna was confused, if that will incur more sin. So why are you pushing me to fight this battle? So Krishna tells, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam, thinking me to be the highest goal, whichever ishta we choose. It's not, see, Krishna is not saying mam means only he, only Krishna. It can be Ramakrishna, it can be Rama, it can be any other god, Devi. Considering the supreme reality as the only goal, then you renounce everything. Parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam. Means what I will do if you do that. Like Girish Ghosh, he gave his fully surrendered. He said, Thakur, you do whatever you like. Then he said, but it should be 100%. You should never say I then. That ego has to be given. Whatever happens, if suffering comes, say, it's not me, it is you. So Girish Ghosh, first he thought it is so easy. Just give the responsibility, power of attorney, and then Thakur will do everything. But Thakur doing everything means you cannot do anything. That is very difficult because our ego is always forcing us to take decisions and feel happy that if we have taken this decision, I have done this, I have done that. So to surrender the ego is a very challenging task. So only in the 18th chapter, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. So all the moral values, all the intellectual values, all the aesthetic values, all the physical attainments, they have to be purified by giving up the ego. Giving up the ego means becoming spiritual. So without inner purification, by ethical discipline, our spiritual consciousness will not develop. That is for sure. But as I said, in some cases, like Girish Ghosh, you have direct double promotion. Sri Ramakrishna was so kind that he rose. He did not have to go through the stages. The stages came to him, not that he became immoral. Morality, he became so moral that people could not believe. Was he the same person who was once upon a time drinking so much that he would not be conscious? He even said, I drink so much that I can't promise you that I'll do japa even once. Maybe on some days I'll just be lying down. So, but he was honest. At least he told what he cannot do. And that is why Thakur took he said, then you give, what else can you do? If you can't do anything, not even repeat my name once, the name of Lord once, then can you do this? So the last option was the best option actually. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam. Aham tam sarva papebhyo. So this is the Lord himself is saying, I will redeem you from all the sins. Moksha ishami. Not only that, I'll give you moksha also. First, I will relieve you because the evil effects of karma have to be removed. Even though they say God may forgive us, but history doesn't forgive. So, Swami Vivekananda. So, some part of the karma in some way or the other, it can be overcome by God's grace, but it has to be a little bit of suffering will be there. But that is negligible because the Lord is taking care. So because we have surrendered everything, He does everything. And even if there are some lapses, aham tvam sarva papebhyo, not just simple sins, all the sins that you have committed, I can free you from that. But when you surrender, that is important. That is why the Upanishads also tell us that the spiritual aspect of the personality is the highest. But it has to be preceded in most of the cases, except exceptions like Girish Ghosh. One has to slowly go practice virtues. Which are the virtues? They are self-control, that is one virtue, like controlling the horses. Truthfulness, that is another virtue, as far as possible in thought, word and deed. Then we come to continence or brahmacharya, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. All these things are very common. They are the common virtues which are there in every religion. They form the moral background. But then even Jesus Christ says that kingdom of God you have to realize within. It's not just by doing some unselfish actions. Yeah, they are definitely necessary to purify the body, to purify the mind. But the final jump you can do only if you worship the consciousness, truthfulness, continence, sincerity, humility, kindness, and charity. Above all, the scriptures give so much importance to truthfulness because Sri Ramakrishna used to say one can reach God through truthfulness. We find in the life of Harishchandra, which inspired Gandhi a lot. And that's why he wrote My Experiments with Truth. Many people may think it to be very controversial because whatever he saw, whatever he believed, he wrote. At least he was honest. Many things he admitted, which people say just making a show and other things. But what he understood as truth, he followed. So that's why Mundaka Upanishad, the third chapter and the verse number 5 and 6, if you see, it says, Satyena labhyas tapasa hesha atma samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam antah sharire jyotirmayo hi shubro. Shubro means white. Yam pashyanti yataya kshina dosha. Now, these are the conditions. The Mundaka Upanishad, normally they say Mundaka Upanishad. Mundaka means doing mundana of your hair. So as the name itself implies, it is a monastic Upanishad. But that doesn't mean it is true only for monastics. Anybody who wants to know truth, he has to Satyena, it starts with Satya. As Ramakrishna said, other things are important. Brahmacharya, then Samyak Jnana, then Jyotir, by meditating on the Anta Sharire, Jyotirmayo, Hishubro, the pure self which is within. All these things are necessary, but it starts with Satyena Labhyas Tapasa. Tapasa means, tapas word is a wonderful word. It really means that not allowing Prakriti or the gunas to take control of the Purusha. Very simple. That is what tapasya is. Tapasya means the positive. Their tapasya can be negative also. People sometimes I'll do this, I'll torture my body, I'll run so much, I will climb so many mountains because I want to do tapasya. Why? Without understanding the meaning of tapasya, if you practice it, it's just torturing the body. That is what Buddha realized. He said just fasting, just tapasya means okay, not eating, not doing this, not doing that. But why? Why don't you do it? Why we should not do it? There should be a higher reason. So Satya is that higher reason. Satyena labhya tapasa. This Atman, which is resplendent and pure, Shubhra, resplendent. Jyotirmaya is resplendent. Pure is Shubhra. Shubhra means pure. The Atman, which is pure and resplendent, shining, full of light, not the physical light, but the spiritual light, spiritual illumination, whom a person of strict discipline, free from all traces of iniquity, pursues, is attainable. How is it attainable? By constant practice of truthfulness, self-control, and right knowledge and continence. So these are the four pillars on which the moral practices, as described in the Mundaka Upanishad, help us to realize the resplendent and pure Atman, which is dwelling within Anta Sharire, it is dwelling within the body, no doubt. The location or the center of consciousness has to be subjective, has to be in our heart. That is why we say that it is the heart which is the seat of the Atman, the pure Atman, the resplendent Atman. But unfortunately, that heart has been covered with lot of external things which dim the light. The light is not effulgent. That is why we have to practice a lot while doing japam. Japa purifies you by vibrations, no doubt, but that is only partial. One has to meditate also, because that when you meditate along with japam, japa purifies the external. Mother said japa siddhi, because first mother also believes in this graded organization. You start japa, you do japa physically. The sound has a power to cleanse the physical body. So as soon as it starts cleaning, you feel lighter, you feel happy, you feel healthier, not just physical health, but mentally you feel healthy. So then the subtle part of the mantra keeps acting on the mind also. But at the same time, you have to meditate. The meaning of the mantra is to, O Lord, who is sitting within the Ishta, he is resplendent and pure. He is the one thing in my life that doesn't change. Everything around me changes. My body changes every second. My mind also changes. Mind is more changeful than the body. That is why mental pain is more than physical pain. Physical pain is there because it affects the mind. So there are some people who can bear physical pain, but they get upset when the mind is disturbed. So all these things, tapasya helps us to make the mind strong, make the body strong. Mainly it is to discipline the body. So that is what the Mundaka Upanishad, but in the next verse it says something beautiful. That is the motto of India when now we are celebrating Azadi, the 75 years of Azadi, the emblem of lions. Below that there is a line which is Satyameva Jayate. It's partly taken from this, but it is a long verse in the Mundaka Upanishad we have to remember. Satyameva Jayate nan ritam. Satyena pantha vitato devayana. Yena krama trashayo hi aptakama yatra tat satyasya paramam nidhanam. So truth alone triumphs. This is the whole sentence. It says, truth alone triumphs, not untruth. Nan ritam. Not na unritam. It's not untruth. Truth alone will survive. By truth is spread out the path. Satyena pantha vitato devayana. Devayana means the way of the gods, the way of noble people. Truth, as it were, is the path on which noble people travel. That is the meaning. That is the path by which seers means he aptakama, seers free from all desires. Aptakama means one who has satisfied most of his desires. Small desires everybody has. So they say, when you conquer bigger desires, the small desires still remain. But aptakama means one who has fulfilled those desires. Whatever little desires are there, for Sri Ramakrishna, it was opposite. He had to force his mind to desire water, or I'll eat some sandesh, to bring his mind back. But for others, it is to reduce the desires. The aptakama means to be fulfilled. You see, it's not that you cannot, the very nature, human mind, human body is full of desires. So they say a more psychological, instead of self-denial, which some of the Buddhists and not Buddhists, the Jains do, tremendous self-denial. They said, no, you should not. You have to be merciless on these desires. In a way, it is true, but all can't do that. So, apta kama word suggests that finish whatever little desires you have. Or maybe you might have finished it in the previous life. So, those who don't have those desires, you have to take it for granted that maybe it is like a person who has eaten a lot of sweets. Then you give him the sweet, the attraction is not there because he says, I have finished. Now I can't eat anymore. So apta kama means that one who has fulfilled the desire. Then you'll think that why does the scripture say you have to fulfill the desire? No, it says one who has been done with the desires, who is happy that he has whatever the Lord or whatever destiny has given him, he has enjoyed, but now he wants to proceed where he can get the supreme Satyasya Paramam Nidhanam. Now he wants to reach that place where these small desires, he thinks it is too trivial to go after, to run after. So Aptakama, one who is free. So this Upanishad now he says, as you rise, as we see the graded personality, it starts with the purely physical, then aesthetic, then intellectual or aesthetic, then moral. And as you go towards the supreme abode of truth, then you hold on to truth. In the beginning, truth is difficult to practice. So what happens is we start with smaller truths, but then we think, we cannot say 100% truth. But on the path, as you go, the Devayana very nicely says that truth itself is spread out on the path. So you go from lower truth to higher truth. So Swamiji never liked to use the word mistakes. Error to truth, don't ever think. Nobody should, himself or others, he should not say that this person is doing error, he is doing wrong, he is wrong, he is this. Why should you say? Because you are traveling from the gross to the subtle. It's a very natural journey. Truth is either it is a lower truth or it is a higher truth. Since even the body is a truth, but it is a lower truth. So when they say Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayana, but if you want to go the way of the Lord or the God or the spiritual people, the gods, then you have to quickly fulfill your whatever little desires are there, if at all they are there, and convince yourself, be content. Contentment, that is why Holy Mother used to say contentment is a great virtue. Why? Because contentment, when does contentment come? When you have finished with the small desires. A person is very thirsty. He goes and drinks 1 liter of water. In the beginning, the desire was so strong because he really needed that. But once it is content, he says, no, now it is enough. So also in our other desires, contentment is something which is so difficult to acquire because there is some thirst. Buddhism calls it tanha. Tanha means trishna. From trishna, the word tanha has come. Trishna means that desire when things are not there. It's not lobha. I discussed in the Patanjali Yoga class. There are 3 types of desires. One is when you are not in touch, or maybe you are in touch, or you are not even seeing it, but there is a desire. You don't have to see water to remember. Even without seeing water, it's not that when you see water or then you think of thirst. Whether you see it or not, you feel thirsty. But there are certain desires which are ignited only when you see those things. Say you see a shop where your favorite, you were not thinking, you were hungry, that's all, or you were thirsty, but you did not have any specific desire. But when you go to that shop, when you see that, then you You'll say, no, I want to eat only this, not this. So that is when you see there are certain things which you desires which happen even if you don't see. Then there are, and the third is when you are enjoying the desire, that is known as lobha. That is still gross. I mean, you are eating. If you see, very small children sometimes are subject to this. They because of the past samskaras. Some children are noble. I'm saying most of the children are noble because they've been trained. But you will see some people, when they're still eating, they want to grab others. They have a desire that they want more and more, that they just grab. So that shows that these desires, whichever level they may be, if they are there, then it affects your contentment. Contentment is so difficult to practice because you may give up gross. You may say, no, 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 I don't. When I eat something, I just enjoy that. I don't grab the other thing so that I can eat more. I have given up that type of lobha. Okay, lobha is given up, but what about the other one, the other desire? And then the most subtle desires is you just don't know, it just pops up all the time. You don't even know. He said there is no object in front of me. I'm not seeing that object, but still that desire is there. It's like hunger. Now you don't have to see food to be hungry. When you are hungry, the body itself tells you now you are hungry. Then you search. Then you decide what to eat, what not to eat. So on the way to this truth, they say you go from lower truth to higher truth. So, and in the way you fulfill your desires, and what it means is fulfilling of desires means getting content. You become content. You were thirsty, you drink water, now you are content, now you go forward. Don't go on grabbing the bottles of water and thinking that you may need it. No, just you are finished, just go. So that is how is the path to Devayana. So with the growing awareness of the higher self, because one has to know that our goal is spiritual, not moral or not aesthetic. Some people stop because for them, the whole dream or the goal of their life was to become a great artist. So they always seem to be very happy writing about nature. Nature is just one example. People may write about art. They may write about, some people like cooking, some people like, that is also an art. Then there are fine art, singing. So all these things, no doubt they are aesthetic and much higher than the gross desires. But still, the truth, the path of truth does not end. It says, no, 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 go forward. In the Upanishad, there is a line known as Chareveti. Chara eva iti means, Chara means to move forward. So the Upanishad says, move forward. From physical, you moved forward, you came to the aesthetic or the intellectual. Then you moved forward. You didn't find joy in intellectual pursuits. Then you said, no, I should have a hobby. Then you practice that. When even that is fulfilled, then you want to, you see what a, who are the people who are recognized, not for just name and fame, but the most moral people are respected. They may not be wealthy, they may not be powerful, they may not have good health and other things. But that unselfishness, that moral character has more recognition in society, more that such people, the name that they create for themselves. Not that they intended to do it, but those moral virtues help them. Of course, there are people who want to be recognized as morally superior. So they get a kind of joy, and that is their downfall, because then they criticize the others. They'll say, oh, that person is not good, I am good. So you recognize me for that. If you don't recognize me for that, then I'll get angry. Or maybe the ego will not allow him to. So there also there is a danger. Still you have to go further. That is why they say don't stop at the moral. You just don't bother. There will be moral people. There will be immoral people. But when God's grace comes, even there may be exceptions like Girish Ghosh. So we focus more on the spiritual till the highest truth. Lower truths, they will automatically fall off. We don't have to make effort to give up the lower truths. Automatically, when you know that you have to travel a lot, then whether your leg pains or not, you don't care. You know that is the goal, this is not the goal. Otherwise, if you are happy with, then you will see the nearest bench and sit down. And then you will say, I will not go further. Now you either bring a car or I am not going. You don't put in that extra effort. So that is what the Upanishad says, that don't stop. Chara eva iti, charaiveti, charaiveti. Means just go on, go on, go on, march forward. Sri Ramakrishna in Gospel, the same thing used to say, egiye jao, egiye jao. So he gave the wonderful example that somebody was, a woodcutter went to the forest. He saw some wood. He became very prosperous. Then somebody came and said, don't be happy, just go inside. He went, then he found a sandalwood forest. He said, see, if I had not come here, I would have been just on the gross plain only. So he got sandalwood, more money. But when he was almost about to be happy with that, then said, no, there is further, Charaiveti, go forward, go forward. So, egiye jao, Sri Ramakrishna says, some wise man used to always tell him, go forward, somebody. Then he went and he saw silver, gold and diamonds and all those things that Thakur used to give that example. That is exactly what we mean, that when the Upanishads say life is a graded organization, you are traveling not from error to truth. You have to remember, Swamiji never liked the word error. Said, why do you say it is error? It's just ignorance. Lower truth. It's a truth at that level. If the child says, I am interested in chocolates, you may not know. He said, the elder person does not know he says, this is my heaven. I like to eat chocolates. The other fellow will say, we have eaten so many chocolates, is risen much higher. He will not enjoy that. So also, here the Upanishad says that the time has to come when you have to give up the lower truth for the higher truth, till you reach the pure, free and immortal. Pantha satyena pantha vitato devayana. Everywhere there is truth. Higher truth. As you go forward, higher and higher truth. Oh, this is what truth is. And when you reach that, you will find, no, this is not the real truth. There is still further you have to go. Like that, the real nature of every individual. First, the main point here, which the Upanishad conveys is, as you consider yourselves to be pure, free and immortal, it's a great psychological truth. You see that purity in others also. Some of you come to the conclusion that if I am true, if I am seeing these things within me, then will not be the same things, or perhaps they are not aware. It is covered with some dirt. But what is there inside? The same pure, free, immortal Atman is there. That is a higher truth. So when we reach that higher truth, the lower truth, the jealousy, the anger and all those small things which prevent us from seeing the higher truth in oneself. If you have to see it in yourself, you have to see it in others. It doesn't come so easily. It is as difficult to see the goodness of others as much as it is to see the goodness in oneself. That doesn't mean that we have to always try to convince ourselves that we are good, but at the same time, you should not hate. So, Swamiji said something very important, because some of the religions, Semitic religions, in the West especially, were saying so much about sin and untruth and all these things. So they were there were religious people who used to put fright. They used to terrorize people by saying, oh, you have done this sin, gone. You have no hope. You are doomed. You will be going to hell, eternal hell and all. So much of fear was there. Especially the religious people used to shout and shout at people, oh, you are gone. Unless you do this, you are gone. So much of tyranny was there. But Swamiji never liked that. Swamiji said, just have a positive attitude. As you see, as you raise yourself, obviously the same spirit which is in others will appear to you. They appeared as gross beings for some time when you were gross. As we change, as we become subtle, we are in touch with the subtle. When we are in the state of the cosmic mind, when that is what happens when we pray to Ishvara. What is Ishvara? He is the sum total of all the cosmic mind. Somehow that connection happens. And you find strange things happen. Strange people come to you. You get satsang, you get so many wonderful things. And it because these things you have earned. These are not things which just casually come to anybody. Because you have been trying to raise yourself, the more you raise yourself, you will see people at your level. Say in the plane, when it sees the clouds, it sees clouds everywhere. Because at that level, you will find only clouds. So if you find goodness within you, if you find purity within you, how can you find purity outside, impurity outside? You will also give the benefit of doubt and try to see that purity outside. So he says, consequently, Upanishad says, he realizes as he travels this path that his fellow beings, with due regard and consideration, he tries to give the benefit of doubt and say that they are also traveling. Maybe they are at a lower level, but they are all struggling towards the same goal. That was the immortal message Swami Vivekananda gave in Chicago. Said, you are children of immortal bliss. He didn't address it only to good people. There were so many people, angry people, jealous people, quarrelsome people in that crowd. He did not single out only the good people and say, you are Amrutasya Putra, you are the children of immortal bliss. So, when you search for that bliss within, you see the bliss without. And naturally, all your social interests, it becomes colored with this quest. The narrow self-interest is replaced by a higher self-interest. Swami Ranganathan used to give it a very nice name. He says, everybody acts in self-interest. No fool will say that I am 100% unselfish. I do nothing for myself. It's a hypocrisy. It never happens. Everybody is self-centered. But Ranganathanji said, if you are selfish, be selfish. He coined a word, a beautiful word, enlightened unselfishness or enlightened selfishness. He used both the words, enlightened selfishness. It is, you are selfish. But at the same time, you are selfish for the higher self. And you want to take others with you. So that is enlightened. You are not selfish in a very narrow sense. You take society along with you. So it colors your social interaction. It colors your interaction with other people. And you don't become conventional. Conventional in the sense, oh, if you follow this, you are right. If you don't follow, you are not ethical. Then you keep away. And all those things, it slowly goes away. It's not so easy because unless we see that divine within, it is so difficult to see the divine without. So we will conclude now. The time is almost over. We have just exceeded by 1 minute. If there are some questions, we are a little early in the sense we started at 6:30. Normally we start at 7. So last time somebody wrote that you should give time to type. I should not just close. So please type your questions if anybody has. I'll try my best to answer. Again, I'm reminding you, we have Janmashtami celebration. Please do come. I put it on WhatsApp. It is on 18th, Thursday. Online, many people were asking if at least the talk will be online. You see, it doesn't make, I mean, it may be a bit difficult for making even the bhajans and other things, other small puja and all online. But we will, after Aarti, which normally happens at 6 o'clock or maybe little earlier. We'll try to start the class at 6 or 6:15. So that will be online. That will be announced. The link, the same link which we use today. In fact, all our links, if the class is conducted by us, Ramakrishna Vedanta Center, it is the same link, but only the Gita link which I sent earlier was different. So don't use that. You can use this link. Even if you are having some doubts, whether it will be telecast, at what time it will be telecast, just keep logging in. If you are let in, then the talk will be there. But it will definitely be telecast live. I mean, it will be online. It will be on Zoom as well as YouTube live. So any question? Shall I take your leave? Yeah. Ego and identification with ourself is the same. Yes, it's a very good question. Ego is what? See, when you say identification with ourself, now ourself can mean anything. Ourself can mean the pure self, then ego, then there is no ego. But if the ego is regarding the lower self, then it is harmful. As I told you, Kachami and Pakami, the best solution to this problem, because everybody thinks ego is a problem. Ego is not a problem. In fact, ego is something which goes last. So Thakur gave such a beautiful example. He says ego is such a problematic fellow. So he used to use the word Salah. Then he says, he's scolding ego. He says, if you have to become, if you are persisting, then stay as the Pakami. You become Pakami and stay. Don't be Kachami. Kacha means raw ego. So that ego which holds on to the lower things, lower truth, is harmful. But that ego which tries to, see, it may not hold on to the spiritual self, because we really don't know what this spiritual self is. It is just a discovery. We are going on that path. Satyena pantha vitato devayana. We are just on that path. We are far off from the real self. So according to this question, identification with ourselves as a spirit is not ego. Ego is, we say a person is full of ego when he is having kachami. When he says, I am the spirit, I am the child of mother, I am the child of Thakur, you may not really feel it 100%, but when you say that, you are giving up the little ego, and the bigger ego or the bigger self isn't. So self also is ego. So ourself, when you say, if you consider the ourself, yourself or myself or other self as the spirit, then it is not ego. Okay. So one more question is there. There is WhatsApp group I need to join for regular update. Yes. Yes. Today you gave me your number is there with me, and I sent you the links also. Perhaps I'm sorry that I could not. I gave you the Gita link, then you had to ask this question, so I had to separately send you the new link. But those who are on WhatsApp, I will add you. But you need to add my number, of course, obviously is with you. So if you add, then any last minute changes or everything we give on WhatsApp for convenience. So that is the best way. You just have to click, even if there is some last minute change. Sometimes I just give the link half an hour before the talk. So if you know that there is a talk almost every day, not every day, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday at 7. It doesn't change. Today, the class was supposed to be 5:45 because it's a Gita class. It was supposed to be every alternate Saturday. So it was Gita's turn today, but the link that they gave was saying that you cannot enter, the session has not started for some reason. So I had to immediately change the link and give the new link and change the time also, because 6:30 was, people have to change. So I will definitely send you, you will be getting regular updates. Now there's one more question, or last one. Higher self has an ego too, but for asserting it when pull is downwards means recognizing the lower self, then how to be free? This question, if I have understood it properly, the higher self, that ego, as Thakur said, Paka Ami and Kacha Ami. So naturally, the Paka Ami pulls the lower self up. The lower self, the tendency is always to follow gravity. So when you are climbing steps, it is difficult to climb. Coming down is very easy. So, but if you are determined, if your willpower is strong, when you say the higher self has to be asserted, every time the lower self will say, no, 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 it is easy, just relax. The physical self will pull you down, the mental self will pull us down, intellectual self will pull us down, aesthetic self will not pull us down, it will divert our mind. You will feel tired. It's like climbing the different steps. After you climb one step, the next step is say, no, just sit down. Now you are tired. So that is what happens when the ego gets stuck at these different levels. So higher self has a ego, no doubt. That is a higher ego, that I am the spirit. When that ego goes, as it happened in the 18th chapter, Sarva Dharma Parityajya. You say, I am not there now, only the Lord is. In fact, Girish Ghosh did that. He did right from the beginning. You should appreciate that. That he said, I am nothing. Thakur, I can't do anything. I can't even do one japa. And in fact, there is another disciple, Swami Subodhanandji. So Thakur told him, okay, morning and evening you do. I'll give you some mantra. Then he said, no, if I have to do all this, I could have gone to some other guru. I came to you so that you release me immediately. So that is also a kind of faith. Of course, you can't compare Girish Ghosh and Subodhanand. He was like a child. He believed in Thakur so much that he just went as if a child would go to the mother and said, I know you have it, you just give me. And Thakur gave him, of course. Not that he didn't do sadhana, but he said it. He was simple. He had no ego. So he said, you have to do it. I have come to you because you can give me without sadhana. If I have to do sadhana, I have to do everything. I have to do japa, then I'll go to some other guru. I have come to you because you give. So that faith, if it is there, similarly, the higher self has an ego, but it is harmless. The higher self means I'm talking of the spiritual ego. Spiritual ego or the identification with the spirit, any identification is a ego. So when you identify with the spirit, no doubt it is a ego, but it is a higher ego. Pakami. Or you can even say, you don't have to identify with the spirit. You say, Sri Ramakrishna is the spirit. My Ishta is the spirit. He is not material. He is spirit. So I identify with him. He is full of light. He is full of consciousness. He is Satchidananda. So that way your ego goes. Because you are nothing compared to Sri Ramakrishna. He is taken control of you. So that way, how can the ego be there? Okay. So now, how to know if you are asserting the higher self or the lower self? The higher ego could be very sharp and discriminative of the lower self. Asserting it would be at the cost of sacrifice of or hurting others. No, there is no question of others in this. The spiritual journey is an individual journey. The other things that happen in the course of this journey, they are incidental. You may say it is because of karma. But when you assert the higher ego, because the whole world, which includes others, when you say others, it means the whole Prakriti. So Prakriti is, as we discussed in the master, as I saw in class, Sister Nivedita very clearly said, nature for the self, not the self for the nature. So your self is supreme. That's why Ranganathanji said, enlightened selfishness. Everybody has to be selfish. In fact, everybody is selfish. But the problem is we are selfish for silly things, which does not help. Ultimately, that is snatched away. But if you are selfish for spirituality, then that is a different kind of selfishness. It is known as enlightened selfishness. So Ranganathanji was so fond of this word. He used to say, don't say I am unselfish. Nobody can be unselfish. The moment we are born with the ego, everything is done for our sake. For whom do we practice spirituality? For ourselves. But when you are selfish, or when you say that when you start asserting the higher self or the lower self, when you assert the lower self, you get in conflict with the world. When you are asserting your higher self, the conflicts become less and less. That is why when Ranganathanji said enlightened selfishness, that selfishness which does not hurt others is a higher selfishness. So naturally, one can know by its very nature. By its very nature, when you see, for example, now if Buddha comes and sits in our midst, will you call him selfish? In fact, he says he was so obsessed with his self, the real self, that he did not consider anything else important. Whereas we consider our small self important, our small ego, our small talent, our small aesthetic values, our small moral values, they are still small. And sometimes it is very gross, like our money, our property. So these are grosser, but still we can raise. We can say at this stage, I will get rid of the gross self, but subtle ego is still there. So I can't get rid. When I do more japa, I'll feel, oh, I used to get upset, say 20 times a day. But now I'll get only 10 times a day. Many things I'll just let go. Because I don't consider it to be important. So as you go higher, the higher ego has to be sharp, definitely. Only a sharp person can be meditative. Because he is very clever. He should be very clever. He should not allow the lower self to grab it. So your question is correct. The higher self or asserting the higher self, you clearly know it because you become a master of yourself. You no longer get upset. When you assert the lower self, you feel that you are losing something. But when you go higher, it is like as a person goes up, he doesn't see the small things which are happening. When you go to a very high place, all the corals and other things remain below. Even though they are quarreling, the sound doesn't reach you. But if you go down, then you feel, oh, you are in hell. You have to listen to all these things. So to raise yourself, it never comes in conflict with the lower self. Yeah. So is there an example of enlightened selfishness? An example of enlightened selfishness in today's world? How are others involved in what way? Enlightened selfish person selfish towards others. Yeah. So Ranganathanji, because this is not my invention, Maharaj used to give an example. He to understand what this enlightened selfishness is. Because then everybody will say my selfishness is enlightened. How to know if it is enlightened? He gave two tests. This is very important. It's a very good question. So I will tell you how to know if it is enlightened selfishness. That he says two things will happen. He says peace within and love without. You will just start. Maybe now you are loving maybe your family or your friends. Then he says the expansion is seen in the circle of love that goes on increasing. That is the external sign. That is the external sign which you can see, others can see. But there are certain internal signs which are known only to you. That is peace within. So his definition of enlightened selfishness was peace within, love without. It's very simple to understand, but difficult to practice, obviously. But this is the closest definition we can give about enlightened selfishness. Yes. Thank you for these wonderful questions and answer. I hope my answers have satisfied. So I'll take your leave. One more. Okay, one more. So that's why I closed early today. Anyway, just one more. Okay, please. Yeah, tomorrow we'll be having our normal class, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, because last time it was Great Master, and the time is 7. Yeah. So I don't see any more questions. Yeah. Does that mean that love without, as in other people, would not be able to feel you are selfish? Yes, yes. That is exactly what I meant. The people can know whether love is selfish or unselfish. When Ranganathanji mentioned that love without, he did not talk of worldly love, because that love is tinged with a little bit of selfishness. Whereas unselfish love you can feel, you can really feel. So peace, but remember, he says two go together. If there is unselfish love outside, then there is peace within. So peace within is the byproduct is unselfish love. You don't have unselfish love for the sake of love. Nobody does that. Everybody is selfish. Unselfish love is something which is rare. But if there is peace within, then automatically other people feel that there is unselfish love, because other selfish love always brings pain. Okay, so we will conclude. Om. But surely people can feel that enlightened selfish person who is himself very peaceful, but the love he is spreading outside is not palatable. How can it not be palatable? No, 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 that is not true. If he has peace within, the whatever little, he may not express it. So let me tell you, Ranganathanji always said that. I have seen some people who just are a full, there were some Swamis who were full of peace within. They would just close their eyes and sit. Perhaps they would not go out and express their love. But at the same time, if you went to their presence, you felt that kind of attraction. I've seen myself, very reserved people. But when they opened their mouth, we were really afraid. I'm telling you this because I had personal experience. We had fantastic ideas about such, because they never spoke, they were always serious, apparently serious. But because there was peace within, they, in their presence, first you felt fright. But the moment they opened their mouth, there was so much of love which was expressed. So it's not contradictory. When Ranganathanji said that, sometimes we think that serious people are not, don't have that capacity to understand other people or love them. But that peace itself attracts, and that is the manifestation of love. Okay, I'll close now. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.